This lecture will discuss the Olmec culture of Mesoamerica in Central America. It is located on the north coast of the the sort of the southern part of Mexico, the part facing into the Gulf of Mexico here, along the coast here, where you see La Venta and Tres Zapotes, those sites. And this is the first of the complex civilizations we get in the New World, and we will talk about some of the sites like La Venta and Tres Zapotes, and one other as well. Now, the this starts about 1600 BC. This says 1500 BC to 400 BC. Some other chronologies have 600 to or I'm sorry, 1600 to 350, etc. But it gives us a general idea of it's the second half of the second millennium, and most of the first millennium BC. Now, when I say civilization, once again, I want to remind everybody that that term is not used as a qualitative description of the peoples there. It is in anthropological terms. It just means people are living in an urban setting with highly stratified social structures. Right, that is to say, there is people of rank, people of no rank, people with great accessibility to wealth, others that don't, etc., etc. And it is in this region of modern day Mexico and in Central America where this culture emerges. And here is just another slide from what's called the formative period later on in its history, where you can see once again some of the important sites in this region. As we go on later on, we'll talk about some of these other sites. But for the Olmec right now, we will concentrate on these sites. Now, one of the great contributions that the Olmecs gave the Americas basically is a calendar, and a very good calendar indeed. There were actually, a couple different calendars, but I just want to talk a little bit about the long count calendar, because this long count calendar, as you can see, was comprised of many days and years. And they would, and the Olmec would, with this calendar, predict when the world was going to end, when it began, all these sorts of things. And it's a complex calendar. We're not going to go into the details of it, but I just want to point out that once again, when we get into these complex urban societies in which people are not just farmers, but there's now bureaucrats, and I shouldn't say just farmers, but only farmers. And there's no bureaucrats. There's not many tradesmen, middlemen, bureaucrats, et cetera, et cetera. People were still living in primarily, village economies. You don't tend to get these calendars. But once they move into urban environments where people are no longer that tied to the ground, but get their foodstuffs at markets or what have you, these calendars tend to come into play, and they show just basically an organization and measurement of time, which we have to, we as far as we know, we're the only species on the planet that does in fact measure time, and but with calendars too, we can keep records. And that's very important, right? Where we can say, for example, the government tax collector can say, this is how much you paid last year, this is how much you're going to pay this year, this is what you're paying next year. And people can record these things, along with their stories, as well, and their religious beliefs, many things. And so we see that start with the Olmec. and we can see these the terms for the the positions in the long count calendar. And here we see this statue here. I just want to point out this statue called a were jaguar, where jaguar I'll talk about a little bit later on, but it's basically a human-looking jaguar, which was a deity of some sort in this region. On the back of this is an inscription, and it gives some dates in it. I have no idea what any of this says. I can't read any of it. But if you look at the left-hand column on the bottom, you can see the numerical systems there, like with 3 lines and 1 dot, that's a 16. 1 line, 1 dot is 6, etc., etc. So they were able to figure out the numerical system for the Olmec. Now, one of the things the Olmec were very famous for is rubber, and indeed, we don't know what the Olmec called themselves. The Olmec were called by other people the rubber people, and that's what Olmec means. And so they, this is what they sort of, obviously their economy focused on, and what they were known for. But we don't have any of. They didn't record any of. We don't have any of their writings, so we really don't know what they called themselves. So just like we have misnomers for the Native Americans, and they used to be called Indians, and has nothing to do with India, of course. This is a little bit of a misnomer, but in any case. Rubber is very important. As you all know, they had these rubber trees where they could cut them and peel the bark off them in a nice V-shaped fashion there on the top of your picture of the tree, and force the sap out of the rubber tree. We're all familiar with this with our rubber tires. But what was one of the things that the Olmec used it for was a ball game that they introduced into Mesoamerica, and would continue on, and indeed variations of it continue on to this day. But it was more widely practiced in the past, called ulama. Now, this is, first of all, let me say, here's one of the rubber balls on the bottom right here, also one in the center. Now, these are solid rubber. Now, we don't think of rubber as a nice soft stuff, right? As you know, rubber can be very hard. We use it on tires, as you well know. And these rubber balls were, in fact, really, really hard. They could break bones. And there was a game played at this I-shaped or sometimes T-shaped court that existed in all the cities. There were many, many of these courts, and they. So the game was quite popular, and you could not use your hands. We believe you could use your shoulders and your elbows, but primarily your hips. And you try to get the ball through this little hoop shown there on the upper right. On the upper left, you can see the court with those slants. If you look closely on the right-hand one, you can see that black sort of stone hoop there. The one on the left is being obscured by a tree. And they had to try to hit this very, a hard, heavy ball, which is something like, 20 pounds or so, 25 pounds, up into this and through this hole. So this is a popular game, and we'll see these stadiums, for lack of a better word, ball courts, or are at every city. I just want to point out here, just to put us back in context, this is the upper right. We see the map of the general area of the Olmec culture. this site on the mound on your left is at a site called La Venta, where we can see some wonderful jade mosaic floor designs at the site. La Venta, though up near the Gulf of Mexico coast, gets this from more of the Oaxaca region to the southeast. And so the jade is imported, but used extensively in their artwork. And here's just a layout of the site. Just, we're not going to go through every building, but I just want to give you an idea of just how large these sites are. These are not, villages by any means. These are urban centers with major religious centers in them as well. And cities just like we were seeing at this time in the Middle East, etc. With, interestingly enough, large pyramid structures. Here is the site of Tres Zapotes, showing you the pyramid there, or a couple of the pyramids there, actually. I want to point out, by the way, that, do not make any connection between the Egyptians and these cultures because of their pyramid-shaped structures. Now, granted, these structures, took a lot of work and a lot of energy and time and wealth to build. So, it seemed that perhaps there must be some sort of connection, perhaps religious, cultural, whatever. But what it really comes down to is that, if you want to build big with this type of technology, you don't have too many options. You can do a rectangle or you can do a pyramid shape. And that's about it if you want things to stand for a long time. So don't think that these things have anything to do with like the pyramids in Egypt. I want to point out also, you can see from the photograph on the left, there's actually rooms on top of these pyramids, shrines, etc. So they were not burials like the tombs in Egypt. Here we see. I just want to show you the layout of the site once again, just to reinforce that the large size here. Look at the scale down here, right on the bottom right, 1 kilometer. So 1 kilometer is about the distance from campus to downtown Providence, let's say. And so that gives you an idea of just how big these cities were. And these are the distribution of the mounds. I don't believe all of the mounds have been excavated, but there are many, many, many of them at Tres Zapotes. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And as I've said in the last class, there's still a lot of work to be done in these regions. Now, one of the things, objects that is quite common from the Olmec are these axes. They're called kunzaxes. I don't know where that name comes from. But what they frequently show are the were-jaguar. Now, were is just an old English word for man. So we all know this word from werewolf, which just means man-wolf. And there was the man-jaguar. This is, purely an English name for this deity. In any case, and these are some wonderful axes that were made showing the deity, but as we can see very well, the ones in the center is where the axe, where the cutting edge was on them, and made out of wonderful stones. Some of these stones, imported from fairly far away. We'll put it this way: they don't exist in Olmec territory. We also get these masks showing, different facial formations. Right? There's nothing sort of standardized there, and we can see, they are anthropomorphic. They show humans. One of the things they show frequently is children crying, and that I should have mentioned in the last slide. The were-jaguar name is not completely accepted because some people say that they are representing other things. And apparently, the crying baby is not infrequent. They do have these. Commonly have these downturned sides of their mouths and thick lips, and frequently a broad nose, but not seen too much here, and sort of squarish face. So we get a general idea of what the people look like. Not that it's way off, because there are still descendants of these people throughout Mexico, of course. Now, is it directly to the Olmec, or is it to the Mayan, or Aztec? I can't say for sure, of course. But they were fortunately not completely wiped out by Europeans, and so who knows? I just can't say. But we can see that they enjoy showing these anthropomorphic figurines. Here are just some more I wanted to show you. That head in the center. I'm going to come back to that style of sculpture in a moment, but just to show that they enjoyed, showing little kids, like up on the upper left here. The right seems to be a wrestler of some sort. Bottom left, somebody, perhaps a mother holding a child. They have the ability to show the human form pretty well. We don't know if these are deities or what. Some of these, are just figurines, but this sculpture in the left, or in the center, I'm sorry to say, these are colossal heads that I'll come back to in a moment. One of the interesting finds at the site of La Venta were these collection of figurines. And we get the wonderful photograph of them being excavated. In the upper right, there's some pretty careful digging here. They did some really good, fine job there. And we can see in the left that they've sort of highlighted colors of these figurines to show us the different types that they have. And we can see on the bottom right, and they stand in front of 6 slabs of various stone types. Is it a religious ceremony? We really just don't know. But it sort of seems that would be the case with these slabs of stone, of different colors and different materials. And one person standing underneath them, that's on the left in your green, and the rest sort of facing. Although there seems to be about 5 attendants that this interpreter has to the right of the blue line, and then the rest of the people to the left. Now here's what the Olmec are very famous for, are these large heads. Let me just say real quick, here's one of the crying babies again on the bottom right. But these large heads, which are about, a human height, they're about 5 to 6 feet tall, and weigh, an astronomical amount, like 20 tons or something like that. And they show these faces, that no two are identical. The one on the left and the center are the same ones. There's 17 of them, I believe. They all have different helmet types. But then they have the downturned mouth, the broad nose, sort of almondine eyes. We don't know if they're deities. Since they all have different crowns, it's thought that they will perhaps represent different rulers. But it's not certain, so because we have nothing written. And here's another example of one being excavated out. Now you can't miss this one, right? I mean, if you can't find this, you shouldn't be in archaeology, and that is indeed a nice find. And we see the ears there with the interesting earrings and the cap. And here are just some more. To give you an idea of the variety of them. And though there are archaeological sites and cities associated with Olmec, these pieces of art are what they're considered most famous for. Are they portraits Are they deities? We don't know. Um, the reason they think there might be kings is because the crown sort of changes with each one. And they have broad, similar facial features, but no two are strictly identical. Here's one from San Lorenzo, and we can see as the archaeologists are cleaning it off. This one, interestingly enough, has a nice pupil in the left-hand eye here. I don't know what happened in the right-hand eye, if it was chiseled out or what. And indeed, here is some when they were just being found. Once again, imagine coming across that. There's no missing what these were. And these are, once again, these are confined to the sort of north coast of this southern part of Mexico, where these heads are found. And the first one was excavated in something like the 1940s 40s or 50s by somebody from the Smithsonian. But obviously, the locals knew a lot of knew about them prior to this. So when when they say discovered, what that frequently just means is that some scholar of European descent, came across it and published it. But of course, these things would have been known by the locals. And the bottom left, we see the various types and their general height. You can see one if you wish. If you go down to Washington, D.C., there's one at the Smithsonian. This one was discovered in 1946 by a Smithsonian anthropologist. I couldn't find out which precise site it came from. But in any case, it was taken, and there was, by the way, later a big show at the Smithsonian about these Olmec heads, and sort of justified all this. But in any case, you can see one there, and once again, they all have different caps, as we can see on this. They all have different heads. Their facial expressions are broadly the same. Well, none of them look very happy or smiling or laughing. They look very serious, but we can see that there's no two that are precise, and they're different enough that you can see the different individuals. And with that, we'll stop on the Olmec and pick it up in the next lecture.